Welcome to the BTS Podcast, where we dive beneath the surface of life, fintech, the mortgage business, and much more. Today, I'm joined by Michael Common, the co-founder of Nivo. Michael, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Paul. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invite. Very much looking forward to this.
It's good to see you. So for those who aren't yet acquainted with Nivo, let me give you a quick rundown. Nivo is a cutting-edge tech company shaking things up in secure communications and digital identity verification. They're all about making it easier and safer to gather data, documents, evidence, and approvals for regulated industries. Started by Michael and his team, Nivo blends secure instant messaging with digital identity verification tailored for sectors like banking, lending, insurance, and legal services. They're helping these industries ditch outdated and unsafe methods like post, email, and phone, making the whole process smoother and more secure while cutting down on fraud and data breaches. Michael's tech savvy and visionary thinking have been key to Nivo's success. And today we're diving into Nivo's journey, the ups and downs they've faced, and Mike's take on the future of secure communications and digital identity. Now, you can see what I did there. I just slipped in a mic, and I hope you don't mind me calling you Mike.
Not at all. No, it's very interchangeable for me. There's Mike and Michael out now. I don't even notice these days, Paul.
So good. Okay. Well, hopefully I didn't offend you in the first paragraph. That's good. So, Mike, tell us, how did Nivo come about, and what sparked the idea to start the company?
Well, before Nivo, I was working for Barclays pretty much my whole career. I joined them on their graduate scheme and done loads of different roles. It was always usually something to do with technology, but always to do with change. So new products, propositions, processing teams. I'd worked in the retail bank. I'd worked on mortgage markets. I'd worked on online banking and the app. And latterly, I was working in the corporate bank. And in that role, I was running the corporate UK implementation team. And effectively, we were project managing the setup of corporates. And what struck me was just quite how antiquated the channels and the processes were that we're using. It's basically the most digital I got was putting a PDF into an email and sending that to a customer. These massive deals, and you can imagine for complex corporate deals, there was so many PDFs and so much paperwork involved. So that sparked me to create a project in Barclays to digitize that. And I guess that having successfully done that and it actually expanded into business banking too, I started to think, well, maybe this is a thing that we can expand across financial services. And I think the thing with financial services is it's obviously seen such a massive set of change in digitization. Certainly in my career, the pace of change has actually been pretty rapid when you look back.
Yeah.
But it tends to be on a lot of the mass market, day-to-day banking type things. And as soon as you drop out of that high volume interaction, you tend to find all of these complex and niche processes, not least in the world of mortgages, that are still heavily reliant on these legacy channels that you kindly referenced in your intro. That was a great intro, by the way. I don't think I could have
took me hours.
done any better. I'm glad you took that one. I might have to use some of that myself. But yeah, no, it was essentially coming at it and going, there's so much of banking which still feels really clunky and inefficient and poor for the customer and financial institutions themselves missing out on business because people just give up.
So were you a programmer? Were you on that side of things, or?
Not really, no, only like a hobbyist. I actually did join the bank to go into that side of things and to develop as an engineer. But as things fell, I kind of more got diverted into being a business analyst, which was essentially going out, analyzing processes and requirements gathering and that kind of stuff. And so I set off on more of that business side of things, and project management and program management, and then ultimately into product management. So yeah, never quite really managed to get that professional engineer stamp, but I think my mind does work that way, and obviously I've always been attracted to technology. So
would you I always think that engineers are the modern day sort of car mechanic of my younger years. When you ask for a job to be done and they go,
Really cost you.
it's going to be twice as long and twice as expensive as you thought.
Yeah. I think the thing with engineers as well is where it's slightly different is it's almost hampered by the fact that almost anything you can imagine is possible. When
Mm,
you're a car mechanic, you're kind of restricted by this lump
yeah.
of metal in front of you.
Mm,
But when you're a software engineer, you can pretty much do anything, obviously within the constraints of showing it on a screen.
yeah.
Uh, but it's kind of limitless in what you can do. But the challenge with software engineering, as I'm sure you've found, and anyone who's had anything to do with it has found, is that everything is always so much harder
Mm,
in practice to get done, and there's so many variables. And in the modern software engineering, where there's so many hardware components and software components that are all interfacing with each other, and I guess
mm,
similar to a car, nobody could probably understand the whole thing that
mm.
you're stringing
I,
together. You're kind of relying on different bits of
and
kit that
yeah, and as well as
ultimately
that
solve.
is it's the volume of work that everyone wants done at the same time. I think
Yeah,
that's always I have no patience whatsoever, and I would be saying to an engineer, well, look, I just want the button there. How long can that take? And they'd be saying, yes, but have you seen the list of other stuff that everyone else is saying is urgent?
yeah.
And
It's the hardest thing. It's the
yeah,
hardest thing is the prioritization side of things. And I guess ultimately that's the thing, right? Is if it was easy as dreaming it and then building it, then
mm,
almost there probably wouldn't be an industry for people like me. Everyone could just
yeah,
dream up
e-
software and
exactly.
it would appear. And perhaps ultimately, sometime in the future, this is where AI is going to take
Yeah,
us.
yeah. Well,
But yeah, right now it's
yeah,
everything still needs to be thoughtfully planned through, and that prioritization um, aspect of things without kind of getting bogged into procrastination and not doing anything because you're planning everything to death, which
mm,
certainly the big banks and enterprise clients tend
yeah.
to do
Yeah.
as
I
much
mean,
as
that
much
that
as much
is a
as pushing
challenge in
for it.
itself, isn't it? It's the whole prioritization thing and actually going, we've done lots of analysis, but we're still not actually sure if this is the right order of things. And exactly that. Sometimes you just have to do it and see what happens.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm,
It's a massive balance. Some things are really obvious and you just get them done. But also, I mean, I'm a firm believer you have to speak to your customers. I'm a firm believer in agile delivery, so you get
yeah.
more releases to market continuously, and you learn from that. There's many benefits to that, but one of those is that you get your user feedback, and you know if you're on the
Mm,
right track, rather
yeah.
than going away in a room, spending inordinate amounts of time and money, and then coming with this big thing and suddenly realizing, oh, okay, that was a
Yeah.
completely wrong direction. So that stuff helps, but yeah, it doesn't make it any easier because you're constantly trying to balance, some of the more visionary type things with some of the more day to day things that are just
Mm,
enhancing the core features that you've got. And it's a difficult thing to do. I know everyone in software struggles with that, but
yeah.
in some
Absolutely.
ways that's your edge is how you
Mm.
do that.
So you launched Nivo. Um, so what exactly does Nivo do, and how does it help your clients in their day-to-day operations?
So I think probably the key thing to understand is the nugget of an idea that became Nivo was really when we were thinking and we were trying to think how do you make banking easy, and we are doing all kinds of stuff. And what came through was, well, how do people like to communicate today? And instant messaging, even back then, this was 7 years ago or something. Instant messaging was um, predominantly the way people would choose to communicate if they had a choice. So
Mm,
WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, SMS within that, starting to see some traction around platforms like Slack. And then Teams obviously came along and took that to another level by
yeah,
introducing the Microsoft community to that kind of messaging and collaboration service. And just messaging was everywhere except in these interactions with the bank. And when we looked at that and went, well, is there something fundamentally different about when I'm having a conversation that means when I talk to a financial institution, messaging just won't work? And we quickly realized, of course not, that's not the case. Actually, people would love to be able to message them. The problem was trust, security, and data control. So that was the original problem that we set out to solve, is to say, okay, well, how do we create a messaging service which solves those challenges of trust and security and data control? And as soon as we got to market, we started really in the credit union sector. which
Hmm.
was great early market for us because financial institutions, but they were smaller and more approachable, and we didn't get
Mm,
bogged down in loads of governance and massively digitally underserved as well, and kind of worrying that the digital world was leaving them behind. And as soon as we could offer this messaging service to the members, as they're called, of credit unions, it was immediate. Even the rawest minimum viable product,
mm,
people just love that concept of being able to message. And so now we've got tons of capability and features, and pretty much anything you can dream of in terms of making the collection of data, documents, and evidence and approvals as slick as possible. We've got the capability to do it built into the platform. But I think what really still drives the success of the business is how much people love to be able to communicate over these messaging channels.
right. So I suppose, so if you've got a customer that then can directly message the financial institution, which is pretty much what we're talking about on a secure basis.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
we do have some collaboration tools, so brokers and lenders can collaborate and things like that
yeah,
now too. But
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. So that must alleviate so much anxiety for the customer
yeah,
um, in the
it's-
process. I'm a firm believer in trying to make financial services more accessible to everybody. And I think that if you, especially if you already are someone that may suffer with anxiety, and you're going for your first mortgage, or it could be a subsequent mortgage, and it's a massive thing to do in your life. And even with the best will in the world of lenders, um, of all types, to the borrower, it's someone they only really interact with at the beginning, if there are any issues in the middle, and then at the end. So
yeah.
to be able to have that direct link must be fantastic for them.
People, this is what I mean. People love it. It's just, it is that. I think it's the perfect blend as a channel of. It's not too. I'm trying to think what the right word is, but it's not too much of a leap in terms of Sometimes if you have to have a phone conversation, or certainly if you have to meet a person face to face, or even do something like this, to be honest, Paul,
Mm.
it's quite an intensive thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
To have this kind of
I had to have
conversation.
3 gin and tonics before I came on. No, I'm joking.
Wish I had. But yeah, messaging just takes all of that
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
Everyone it's interesting you use that word anxiety, but I've never really thought about it that particularly myself. But I think it's true that nobody ever gets anxious having a messaging conversation, because I can
Mm,
pick it up, I can put it down. If I want to have a little think about what to say next, I can do that.
mm,
The expectation is to be brief anyway, and you don't have to write a really formal
mm,
set of text, and so yeah, it does relax people. But I think a big thing of it too is the just the convenience of it.
yeah.
We're all so busy, and nobody really wants to commit the time to just get a lot of these financial services jobs done.
Mm,
So if I can just pick up a notification on an app, and at my convenience, then ping a message back to that. It's just so much easier than going, oh God, somebody's ringing me. Do I pick it up?
mm.
Doesn't even say who the number is. Oh, okay, right. They've left the
Y-
voicemail. I'll have to ring them back. I wonder if there'll be an
Yeah.
IVR menu that I have to push through.
Mm.
All of that just
Well,
disappears.
that's absolutely right, and also from a sort of a scam perspective, because this completely removes that fear, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. That's the big thing too, is a lot of these channels, email's probably the obvious one, right? I mean, email is the channel of being scammed.
Yeah.
It just wasn't built to be what it is used for today. And certainly the ease with which email accounts are compromised, both the actual account itself and in transit. And one of the problems with email, as well as the actual email propagates across so many different places when
Mm,
it's sent, that it's impossible to know that it's safe.
mm,
And also, of course, you don't actually really have any assurance of the identity of the
mm,
person or the organization on the other side of things. So yeah, well, that's the problems we've been able to solve. Really, that's the trust, security, and data control. Is that not
mm,
only is it convenient and easy and this messaging based interaction everyone loves, but it's in this controlled and secure environment. where
Mm,
you know who you're talking to. And so all of those problems with fraud and information security
mm.
are hugely reduced.
So how do you keep all the data that Nivo handles safe and secure?
So we put it all within Amazon Web Services.
Hmm.
Like probably 80% of SaaS companies, if it's not on Amazon Web Services, it's on Azure or the Google Cloud.
Yeah,
And that is one of the things that's been brilliant in the last few years for
yeah,
software, and what's kind of fueled this boom is just we don't have to go out as software companies anymore and buy these racks of servers
mm,
and hire all of these hardware uh, engineers to plug everything together and to build these things
yeah,
and worry about capacity and all of that stuff, and worry about, from a financial services perspective, like how do we plug in all of the various security components that we need to ensure a secure environment. We
mm,
can configure that all remotely and host the whole thing in these massive infrastructures that most of the internet's running on now. And
mm.
yeah, it's just incredible. I mean, I never had to deal with all that hardware stuff,
Yeah,
so I'm quite glad, other than in my Barclays life. And yeah, it would have been a massive barrier to entry if we'd
yeah.
had to
And
do
I'm
it.
guessing things like regular pen tests and all that sort of stuff, it's pretty standard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do pen tests, and it is a thing operating in financial services that we have to fill out a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of due diligence, and we're collecting lots of accreditations as we go that
Mm,
various prospects and clients that we work with are keen to see,
yeah,
which can be quite onerous, but at the end of the day, it does kind of keep you honest on this stuff and make sure that everything always is constantly getting
yeah.
tested and audited and validated that it's up to the latest standards and secure. So it's not the most fun part of the role, but it's absolutely
It's
critical
necessary. Yeah,
for the
absolutely.
business in which we operate in. Yeah.
So how exactly does Nivo make communications more secure and verify identities?
So I mean, it's got the kind of basic stuff that you'd expect around everything's encrypted in
Hmm.
transit and at rest. So the data is always encrypted and protected. But probably the key thing that we do, particularly when talking to a consumer, is we always ensure. So you can run Nivo within your own app,
Mm,
or we can white label apps,
mm,
or it can run within a Nivo app itself that we host. But whatever the access point, there's always strong multi-factor authentication that the user has to go through to actually get access to the services.
yeah.
Um, and then as the user interacts with the service and starts sending messages and providing documents, one of the things they'll be asked to do is to identify themselves. So we've hooked in leading ID scanning and biometric facial recognition checks to make that really slick and easy, and get identity to a high standard. And we're adding other services around identity to the platform.
Hmm.
But the key thing we do is, once you've been identified, we associate that fact of identity to those authentication credentials,
Yeah.
so that then we know every time you're coming in, that's Paul, or whoever it is, that I know that's you. And if you then break those credentials, that's fine, like you've forgotten a PIN or you've got a new device or something like that, then we'll reset that, and the system will re-prompt for you to be identified. So it
Right.
kind of keeps things into, whereas, if you were to compare that with WhatsApp, for example, you've obviously got an identity on WhatsApp, but I can set up a WhatsApp account tomorrow as Paul Brown.
Yeah.
There's no assurance of identity there. So that's a real difference, I guess, of our messaging service versus,
Yeah.
maybe the more mainstream ones that are around there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Interesting. And what are some of the biggest hurdles you've faced when getting Nivo off the ground, and how did you tackle those?
Ah, gosh, so many. It's just such a roller coaster. I mean, everyone says, when you're setting out to be an entrepreneur, you don't go in eyes closed. It's like, I guess, being a parent, right? Everyone's like, "Oh my god, that is hard," and it's going to be a journey.
Yeah.
But until you're in it, you can't quite actually appreciate it. It's just words from other people. So,
Mm.
I guess this would be my words, but
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It all
just
looks so glamorous from the outside, and it's when you're actually in
definitely
it.
not
You
glamorous.
know, it's somebody. You know, is a yacht like so people go, "What are you talking about?" You know, if you've ever been on a yacht, and I'm not talking about these mega yachts. You know, just the flappy white bits as sails,
I've not
and
been on a mega
yeah.
yacht, unfortunately.
But the
One of
thing
those,
is, you know, you rock up into a bay, you know, and you look very cool. And then what people don't see is inside that, it's just a caravan. It's sort of, you know, with a little stove and then the pumpy toilet and all that sort of thing.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's a crazy. People are going to go, "What are you talking about?" But it's that sort of thing, isn't it? It's people look and go, "Oh, that must be so glamorous. What a lifestyle and everything else." And you go, "Yeah, okay." Now you've got
yeah.
the reality of the situation.
Yeah, and it's hard, and the reality is you're always limited for resources. I guess I've got the comparison right of I came from the opposite, and there are quite extremes of I was in a big bank, and in that bank, resources were practically limitless.
Mm,
There was a role for everything. There was a person
yeah,
employed for everything, every kind of specialism you could possibly
yeah,
imagine, and all the challenges and frustrations you face there are all to do with bureaucracy and process and governance and politics and that kind of stuff, and that's what kind of frustrates change and bogs it down sometimes. Exactly the opposite in a
mm,
startup.
yeah.
You're
You have to do everything.
completely in control of your own destiny, and actually anyone
Mm,
that whether you set it up as an entrepreneur or you're involved in one, the amount of accountability and autonomy you have in those roles is just night and day.
mm,
And so it is a great
mm.
thing in some respects, but obviously what
It
that comes with on the flip side is you've got nothing. you,
yeah.
you
It's a
know,
shock to
half
your
the time you
system.
don't know what it is that you're doing, so
Yeah,
you're having to
yeah,
learn
yeah,
on the go. Um, you haven't got any money to just go and splash and
yeah.
spend on XYZ. So
Mm,
you just have to kind of scrap and prioritize the problems that you're going to
mm.
go after and figure out ways. And I'm a big believer in it. Everyone will have heard it, and it's a big thing in kind of particularly Silicon Valley thinking. But this kind of fail at things mantra,
Quickly. Yeah.
fail
Fail
quickly,
quickly.
and I'm a big believer in that because I think it's the only way really that you can truly learn.
Mm,
So you just got to go headfirst into this stuff, and
mm,
we've had all kinds of challenges to answer your question in terms of first of all you've got to figure out how to get customers, how to market to them, how to build a product, how to create a team, what you should build on, where should you start, and as soon as you've made your choices in that, then of course there's pressures coming in from stakeholders and customers, investors, staff, and
mm.
everyone's got a different view and opinion, and this is working and that's not working, and you just got to kind of
Yeah.
chart your way through all of these waters and try and pick the best path that you can.
Mm.
And I think as
And
long as you're resilient and prepared to fail,
yeah, but I
usually
think
you'll find a way.
two key points really you've just mentioned there for anybody watching that are they may have launched a business or they want to launch a business. Um, that the resilience and failing quickly um, is is you just have to keep doing it and keep going forwards. And when you've come out of a corporate environment, as you so rightly say, where you have got somebody to do something, or there is a policy, a procedure for everything, and now all of a sudden the buck stops with you, and making those decisions in the early days can be quite terrifying because you absolutely just have to back yourself and go, look, I've done this for a reason, and I have to live with the consequences. We're all doing this to achieve and be positive, but if I fail, then I pick myself up and I keep going, and that is the key to it, isn't it? It's that consistency of getting up and keeping moving forwards. I won't use any Churchill quotes.
Yeah,
Hopefully a lot of younger people watching that couldn't care less about that sort of thing, but I do. But yeah, that is it, isn't it? It's that resilience and ability to keep moving forwards. So on
I
the
think
flip
so.
side, go on.
I think as well, like some of the I think most of the time what holds people back is that fear of failure,
Mm,
and that's where you've got to get over. You've kind of got to just do things and just accept the fact that
mm,
you're not going to succeed. Like, a lot of times, I think it's easy to get in this mindset of course, everyone wants to succeed, and that feels good. And you kind of want to only do the things that you feel you've got a very high chance of succeeding in.
yeah,
But ultimately, if you're cherry picking that stuff,
mm,
it's very, very hard to certainly be an entrepreneur and to do the things I think that really can make a difference and deliver meaningful change and probably give you that level of satisfaction to another level personally. So yeah, I think it's almost that fear of failing that people have to get over once you've got your head in the space that, do you know what, I may not be the best at that, or I may not know the answer, and I may be like completely throwing myself in the deep end, but
mm.
I'm going to do it.
You're going to do it
Um,
anyway.
and I think you're kind of motivating really.
Yeah, there are these sort of the egoic wounds they call them, and it's like I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, etc. And some people will look at them. Well, actually, most people will look at that and go, "Well, if I fail, it's just confirmed what I believe internally." And it's like, well, actually, we've all got that to some degree, and
Yeah.
it's how much you can control those feelings and actually say, actually, your thoughts and feelings, they're not real, and you've got to think greater than how you feel, in the words of Joe Dispenza. So, I commend anyone. And when I say that, some people say, "Oh, well, so you judge people that always will work for somebody else." Like, not at all. Everybody's different, and everybody has different aspirations. But if you really feel that you have, that burning desire in you, then absolutely go for it. Absolutely.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
So on,
I
on the
and
flip, go
like
on.
you say, it's not for everyone by a long chalk.
Mm.
I'm not sat here going, "Everyone should be an entrepreneur,"
Especially
because
in
it is
tech
hard,
business.
and you gotta want it. Yeah. But that was
Yeah,
always my thing, and,
yeah,
so, yeah, I feel quite privileged to
yeah,
have got the opportunity to go on that journey, but it
yeah.
certainly hasn't
And
been
and
easy.
and the other challenges on this point for a tech business, and you're much more of an expert than I am, but what I learned is that if you are an engineer, you can pretty much engineer anything. So it doesn't matter what industry you're in. There's a set of instructions, and this is what we want and need, and off you go. So it's not like if somebody, using my experience, is a mortgage underwriter, where their experience is underwriting mortgages. So they're not going to go off next week and become, you know, something else completely different. But with engineers, that isn't the case. So you don't necessarily have that loyalty. And I think the other challenge as well of being an engineer in a tech business is, um, I always say it's like you're building the F1 car, but you never get to drive it, or even be part of the crew that goes out to Monaco. You're stuck back in Northampton somewhere, and it's like, well, how do you build that sense of pride and achievement when that is happening? It's a real challenge, I feel.
Oh yeah, massive, massive. I'd say, if I was saying what's the two things that I feel I've really had to get to grips with
Mm,
in my time at Nivo. One's been sales and marketing.
mm.
I used to just think, oh, that's just, you know, guys going for dinners and
Everyone
uh,
thinks that.
and
Goodness
the
me.
sales car. I've got a huge appreciation for it now.
Thanks for saying that. I didn't
It's
pay
one
him
of
for
the
saying that, everybody. I did not pay him for saying that. But yeah, if I had a pound for every time somebody said to me that what you've just told me, because it's the power of relationship and and
yeah,
and leads. So many videos and sales things you see these days is like, a successful company is a company that concentrates on leads, and
yeah.
I believe it's leads and relationship.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be able to do it. And I mean, to be honest, I'd still say it's probably the biggest challenge for me and our business at Nivo is how do we really get
Mm,
that sales and marketing kind of cadence and realize what we think is the huge potential of the product and the proposition that we've built. So yeah,
mm,
that's been a huge learning curve. The other one has been that kind of team building,
mm.
um, particularly in the environment of a startup where you have all of this, chaos almost. Like there isn't the same level of structure. that nobody really knows what the right answer is. There's this
mm,
massive lack of resources. Everyone's actually doing 10 jobs, not one.
yeah,
It's really hard to kind of bring a team together around that. I think the key thing is that exactly what you've said. You have to try and get people on page and feel like you're all heading towards a common goal.
yeah,
Everyone's kind of bought into the mission. And I sometimes think, look, like mission sounds quite grand, but I don't think it has to be.
mm,
Ultimately, we're just trying to make financial transactions as smooth and efficient as possible. It's not the most glamorous thing in the world,
mm,
but it's something that matters, and it
yeah,
matters to almost everybody on the planet. And if you can get people excited about the opportunity, about what we can deliver and that value we can deliver to the world, or we're mainly UK focused at the minute, so even just to the UK, then that's the thing that kind of carries them through to be motivated. Because, like you say, people move around, and it's a very fluid workforce now. So
mm. And
it's really
I
hard to
think,
hold on to.
yeah, so many times we cite when people leave, it's like, oh, for more money, and it's like, is it? Now, maybe in tech, because the salaries can be pretty extreme. But so many times it's when people just don't feel valued, they don't feel
Mm,
seen and heard, and I think that's across any sector. That's life, and my firm belief is it's people first.
yeah,
You see it in so many examples in life where you see and leadership as well, Mike. You my belief is no one's actually born a leader. I know some people differ and would tell me differently, but I think you've really got to work at it, and it's a constant effort, and you have to be completely mindful all the time, because your culture comes from the top, and the whole uh, the thoughts and the feelings around leadership. If you've got somebody that they may be great at what they do, but they're a rubbish leader, you're not going to have a very good company. And then people look and go, well, what's that all about?
yeah,
Whereas you have somebody that's not so good, but they're a great leader, and then you end up
yeah.
having a really successful company.
Yeah, spot on. And to be honest, at the end of the day, that's all it is. It is really ultimately, yes. At the beginning, you kind of start a company, and it's just getting your hands dirty and getting
Yeah,
stuff done.
yeah,
But as the company grows, and more and more people join, then that becomes the role, right? Like you're
mm,
becoming a leader.
yeah,
And I think it's just another one of those challenges, really. As you were talking there, the word that came into my head is just humility.
mm,
And I think you've just got to have the humility and that kind of learning mindset, that you're
mm,
prepared to accept, you know, you're not like the
yeah,
perfect leader, but nobody is.
yeah,
And you can learn and get better and improve like everything. And yeah, it's all kind of tied into me to that kind of, don't be afraid. Like,
mm,
let's just go out there, do things, learn these skills, learn the knowledge, get the experience, and we'll get better all the time.
yeah, cool. So on the flip side of all the challenges, what are maybe a couple of success stories you could share with us, that where Nivo's really made a difference for a client?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think the thing that really gives me some bounce, when we're having some of these
Yeah,
challenging days,
yeah,
is I'll always go and look at the app reviews that
mm-hmm,
we get on the apps that we've published, and they are honestly incredible.
mm,
And then I can go and look at other bigger businesses and see
yeah,
what kind of app reviews they've
yeah,
got. And I always like sort it as well by most recent, because that's the way to really tell what
mm,
people think, because the averages can be boosted up by people who don't really give a monkeys or kind of gamed in how they're asked for. But if you sort by reviews by most recent, it kind of tells you what people really think.
mm,
And like I said earlier on, the kind of experience that people get from just being able to send messages and interact in this way with financial institutions,
mm,
when they're used to these horrible processes that they're getting asked to call up, or getting emails flooding their inbox, or bits and bobs in the post and things like this.
mm,
They just absolutely love it. So a bit more of a generic one, but that's the first thing that
mm,
comes to mind is, just the reviews you get on those app stores of people just saying,
Yeah.
this was so quick, it was so easy, it was so convenient, everyone should be on this. Why is this just not the way that we do business? Like that's the kind of
Mm.
stuff that makes me think,
Yeah,
yes,
I just, do you know what I love when
kind
when
of
looking at you here is that your face is just lighting up. I can see the passion in you. It's brilliant.
yeah.
So, so what makes Nivo stand out from other companies doing similar things?
I think it's a strange thing. We obviously we've done a couple of investment rounds, so you do the rounds, and people
Mm-hmm.
ask these kind of questions all the time. And who's your competition? And in some respects, we could go, oh yeah, the competition's other messaging services like Intercom or Live Person or um, even Slack or Teams or WhatsApp. You could be saying that, but actually we don't find that at all because those just aren't options for the kind of transactions we're having. And when we compete for budget and attention. And
Mm.
it's against things like, I want to upgrade my loan origination platform, or I want a new CRM tool, or I'm going to build this big new portal.
Mm.
And that's the kind of either or. Everyone's got a finite budget, and they'll be saying, "Do I want to do those things,
Mm.
or do I want to invest in this Nivo thing?" Um, and so, I think the obvious thing that we're different in there is we don't approach it through a kind of portal web-based view. It's fundamentally our approach is based on this is all communication. We're a communication channel, and we're the best way of
Mm.
communicating within these financial services interactions that we have. So that I guess is the secret sauce, but it's a blessing and a curse that we approach it with that kind of unique perspective.
Mm.
Is on the one hand, everyone's out there going, I want a really good CRM. Most people have never even thought, hang on a second, am I
Yeah.
doing the right thing? Like basing my whole process on email and phone and
Yeah.
post here. And so you have to really, first of all, kind of try and say, well, this is the problem with that. And maybe if you frame it this way, like you can see where we're coming from in
Mm.
Nivo and how we're approaching it. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
the
You've got to
blessing
get people
obviously
to
is,
think from a different perspective, haven't you?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they've
Mm.
just never thought about it like that.
Mm.
Everyone's thought, oh, well, I want to be more efficient. I want to digitize. I want to automate. Oh, how should I do that? I'll go and buy the latest CRM tool, or I'm going to build one because I'm so peeved with all the CRM tools I've tried in the past or seen in the market that I think I can build one better.
Mm.
But nobody thinks, or certainly we've never come across it. It'd be great if somebody else did, but nobody's thinking, oh, hang on, maybe the problem here is the emails and the phone
Mm.
calls. And so, yeah, you're kind of trying to introduce this completely new perspective to people. And of course, most
Mm.
people's first reaction to that is, no, I'll stick with where I'd already taken my thinking. So it
Yeah.
takes time. And, this is, I guess, the sales and marketing stuff we're going through is like you have to find ways to kind of get your message across to people and
Mm.
plant the seed. And then hopefully as people
Yeah.
see the
So,
idea and start to
so
buy
we
into it, they'll move forward.
can is it? Do you offer sort of API capability? Is it standalone? How does it operate?
Yeah, we've put a lot of work into that actually because the core product as we see it is the network. So we do have you can get up and running like any SaaS platform, in
Mm.
a couple of minutes
Mm.
and just run it through a browser and that works. But yeah, fundamentally, one of the benefits we see of Nivo as a communication channel is how easy it is to integrate into any other technologies too.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've hooked into all of those same platforms I just mentioned. We've worked with clients on integrations into those as well.
Mm.
So that we're never looking to replace those things, but really it's that budget that we're competing with.
Mm.
So it's
Okay.
like do I spend my time and attention and money on this, or do I go down the path that I was probably already thinking
Yeah.
was the right one?
Yeah. Understood. And what trends do you see coming up in the next few years in respect of secure comms, digital ID?
Well, obviously, I mean, digital ID wise, AI and machine learning, that's obviously been a core part of that kind of sector and some of the modern technologies that are becoming pretty mainstream now.
Mm.
But AI, in terms of communications and processing of data and information, is clearly just going to be a massive thing.
Mm.
There's obviously been a lot of hype around AI,
Mm.
But I think I see it anyway as different to maybe some of the technologies that preceded us, things like blockchain and stuff like that, which was kind of maybe a bit of a solution looking for a problem. Whereas AI, and particularly in the world we operate in, it's so obvious to see the value of what it can deliver
Yeah.
because so much of what's happening is just consuming data and transposing it into different formats. I think for a considerable time, yeah, um, that it's very, very much going to be this co-pilot type model. So I think what AI will offer people is them to be able to do their jobs more efficiently.
Right.
Like a lot of tech has been. I don't see that AI is going to come in and start replacing jobs, but I think the potential to make it so much easier for people to do the things they're doing, like whether it's just analyzing a whole bunch of documents and evidence that's come in, or writing a lending case summary or something like that. There's so much opportunity
Mm.
already. I think with this technology, and we've just got to figure out how to get it to the market. And obviously, with us being a digital messaging service, and one of the
Mm.
advantages we've got is we've kind of brought everything into a channel that's
Yeah.
very easy then to use these technologies and plug in and start to try and deliver some of this value and benefit. So I definitely think that's one thing. In the ID space, um, I think what's really interesting is the concept of reusable identities, and
What does that mean?
that. So that basically means that what everyone's doing today, right, is more often than not going and doing their own identification of
Mm.
the individual. Um, but obviously, uh, well, let's take a passport as an example. In some ways, a passport is a reusable ID.
Right.
And so the government's issued this identity document, and then everyone's just trying to validate
Mm.
is that still the thing? But what's happening in legislation now and in the identity market is people are cottoning onto the fact of actually there's a lot of value if rather than everyone kind of validating a document separately each and every time the customer's engaging with them, we have a validated digital credential, a digital identity, like in a digital wallet potentially,
Mm.
that can be used across multiple parties. That's a lot more convenient for the end customer because I'm not constantly having to dig out my driving license and my passport.
Mm.
I can just authenticate with my face or whatever it is that the technology is using. Um, but secondly, as well, it's a lot better control from a fraud perspective
Yeah.
because obviously you can defraud these systems at a point in time. You've always got a chance of doing that. No one can create the perfect solution, but it's a lot harder to start to create a history.
Mm.
If you're a fraudster and you want to purport to be a person that's been carrying a reusable digital identity for months or even years and used it with multiple providers, you're going to struggle to do that and create that identity.
Yeah.
There's a lot more time, effort, and energy that has to go into that, so it's a lot more of a barrier. So, yeah, like I say, that there's a lot of stuff going on in the market around this, and I totally buy into it. I think
Right.
uh,
Interesting.
I think we're going to
Interesting.
start to see these reusable identities become more and more prominent, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. What tips would you give to someone wanting to start their own tech company right now?
Uh, well, we touched on a few of them, haven't we? I
Yeah, we have
think
actually.
just don't overthink it. If it's what you want to do, go for it. Um, have humility.
Mm.
Don't worry about the fact that there's a million things that you don't know what to do. You've just got to throw
Mm.
yourself into it, and you'll pick it up and you'll learn, and you'll find your own path through it all.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I just think, look, I feel lucky myself. I just think our generation um, have had the opportunity to do this stuff
Yeah.
in a way that's so much easier than generations before.
Mm.
It doesn't make it easy, but
Yeah.
it does give you
Yeah.
a massive leg up. There's all kind of financing options that you can obviously use to finance these businesses.
Mm,
There's massive support systems and networks to kind of give you advice and guidance and
mm,
confidence and that support to get going. There's if you're in tech, there's these platforms that exist, not least these cloud platforms we've talked about that make it so much easier to actually get a product up and running and out the door. So yeah, I think it's all there. You gotta want it and go for it and
mm.
not be too
Yeah.
afraid.
So finally, if you were giving your best sales pitch to a prospective client, I mean, what would you say?
I feel pressured now because I don't know if I'm going to do my very best, Paul. I'd like to disclaim it before I get going. Look, I think the absolute key thing for us to get our message across is if people are out there and they're using email, phone, paper and post, and mandating those channels in any of their operations within financial services, I can guarantee that by putting our verified identity messaging across the top of that, then it's definitely going to have an impact on speed, customer satisfaction and advocacy, operational efficiency, and also tighten up those information security and fraud risks.
Mm,
So it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. And
yeah,
my frustration is, to be honest, Paul, I probably can't say that well enough because I'm so confident that's the case.
yeah,
But I think the challenge we have as a business is how do we effectively
yeah.
get that confidence out into
and
the
uh,
market and make sure
and that's
people
the
feel.
thing, isn't it? It's getting your message out to enough people, and the right people, the ones that make the decisions, to show them your work, your successes, and how you're helping others. And I'm sure you will go from strength to strength. I really do. And I really thank you for joining me today and sharing your insights into Nivo and the innovative work you're doing in secure communications and digital identity verification. It really has been a fascinating discussion. To our listeners and viewers, if you're interested in learning more about Nivo or have any questions, feel free to contact me at pb@btscc.co.uk and I will gladly pass on your details. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul.